Hi, I'm Dr. Suparna, and today I'm going to discuss why it's crucial to separate for a period of time when relationships turn toxic. And I'm going to use some charts and graphs that I've created based off of my personal experiences as a survivor of domestic violence, in addition to evidence-based research off of hundreds of thousands of victims in the CDC, Center for Disease Control, published research database, and the personal accounts of many survivors I've worked with for an entire summer as a counselor at a group home/shelter for pregnant women recovering from domestic violence. When we get involved in DV, we never want to admit it, and we think what's going on is unique to us, but these patterns of behavior are common to everyone. If you're involved in domestic violence right now, first know that my advice here is not about judging anyone, and it's not about taking sides and calling someone the bad guy. Because in mutual combat domestic violence, the most common type of DV, the abuser and victim often shift roles depending on the scenario at play, and it becomes crucial to separate for a time when we find ourselves in zones 4, 5, or 6 for the personal safety of both parties involved, because when we hit zone 6, we are approaching an extremely high risk for life-threatening aggravated assault and death. So how do people get to categories 4, 5, or 6? Well, Krishna says that whenever there are two bangles on a wrist, they will always collide and make noise. This translates to relationships in that whenever there are two humans, there will always be conflict because egos will always butt heads. Each time there is conflict, resentment builds. When enough resentment builds in a relationship between two people and the line between sexual and physical violence has already been crossed, categories 4, 5, and 6, then this becomes a highly dangerous situation for any party involved, because the law of polarity dictates that to the same capacity that we can love, so can we hate. And in domestic violence, once a certain critical threshold of dysfunction has been crossed, escalating violence is inevitable. This is why it's really important for two people who have not yet acknowledged, addressed, and worked out the deeply inflicted wounds upon each other to separate themselves for a period of time. If you don't take the time to heal, then you're only going to propagate and escalate the cycle of abuse. So let's run through the graph that depicts the patterns of behavior seen in DV as a spectrum, going from mild, meaning low risk for death, to high risk for death and life-threatening aggravated assault. Domestic violence is a spectrum the same way autism is a spectrum, the same way narcissism is a spectrum, meaning that these same patterns of behavior that are common to any people involved in codependency and domestic violence will express themselves to varying degrees based on the situation at hand. So as we can see here, category 1, emotional abuse, codependency, gaslighting, narcissism, not really necessary to separate yet. 2, sexual abuse not forced. An example of this could be someone offering up their partner for a threesome without their partner being aware. It could be forcing someone to watch pornography that they are not interested in watching. Category 3, physical abuse not requiring medical attention. Before domestic situations get to the point of the courts and the police, there's often several incidents that occur behind closed doors that go unreported. Zone 4, we're getting into the danger zone here. Deprivation in relation to the external environment, internet shaming, financial abuse. This is when one partner starts to deprive another of finances, to limit their resources and ability to leave the relationship. Zone 5, vandalism, intimidation, frank terrorism. This is when we start to hear about threats to someone's life, stalking, intimidation tactics. Zone 6, rape. 4, 5, and 6, this is when we gotta get out. It's getting too toxic, because 7, the final category, that's life-threatening, aggravated assault and death. Remember that true beauty is not unscarred or untainted. True beauty comes from the inner strength it takes to pull ourselves out of extremely dark places.